Hi, and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 1679B, and today's date is October 2nd, 2018, and the title of the episode is FBI Investigation, Not What You Think. In the end, the people will be shocked. Let's get into the economic collapse, political, and geopolitical news. Well, it's all starting to fall apart for the deep state. They're losing their narrative on the Dr. Ford allegation story about sexual assault. And now they're moving their agenda away from that. But before we get into that, I want to talk about this FBI investigation, which Trump ordered. And of course, the mainstream media is out there saying that he was under a lot of pressure, and that's why he went ahead and said, okay, let's do an FBI investigation. He folded, but not necessarily. I believe, and there are others that are confirming this, that, and especially Q, that this was planned from the beginning. And the FBI is not investigating what everyone thinks they're investigating. Yes, partially they're doing the investigation about Dr. Ford. They're just repeating what they've done in the past, the questions that are already asked. But on the side, the investigation is into something completely different, and we'll get into that in just a minute. But the FBI completed their questioning of Mark Judge, of Patrick Smith, and Leland Kaiser. And Ford right now, I don't believe, has been interviewed. This is as of Monday evening. Maybe she is scheduled to be interviewed. But what they found was absolutely nothing. They could not recall the gathering at all. Major red flags right there. We have Julie Swetnick. Well, she cannot specifically say that Kavanaugh was one of the ones who assaulted her. She doesn't even know if he was really there. And she's backtracking on everything that she has said. But don't worry. The deep state realizes that this is going nowhere, that the FBI is going to come back with information, which was, there's nothing here, nobody can remember anything, and it's going to go absolutely nowhere. So what they're doing, if you notice in the mainstream media, they're talking about Kavanaugh lying. He perjured himself during the testimony where he said that he never blacked out from drinking too much. And what they're doing is they're producing a classmate from Yale saying, oh, that's a lie. I saw him black out. Now, of course, he said this, he said that. It's meaningless at this point. It makes no sense whatsoever. What else are they trying to do? Well, they're trying to make it seem like Kavanaugh has a drinking problem, and with this drinking problem, he has a very bad temper, and with this very bad temper, maybe he did something, which is absolutely ridiculous. I mean, Trump was out there, and he said it as plain as day. What happened to innocent before proven guilty? And he went on to say, my whole life, I heard you're innocent until proven guilty, but now you're guilty until proven innocent. That is very, very difficult standard. I say that it's a very scary time for young men in America when you can be guilty of something that you may not be guilty of. And the president went on to say, you can be somebody that was perfect your entire life, and somebody could accuse you of something that is one of the very, very bad things that's taken place right now. And once again, the mainstream media, they're not looking at, is this story true? Because you have to prove the guilt. It's not the other way around. Remember, our founding fathers changed this because it used to be you were guilty and then you had to prove yourself innocent. Now you're innocent and the person who's accusing you has to prove that you're guilty. How do they do this? With facts and evidence. Do we see facts and evidence? Well, so far, no. Basically, all we see is one person out there saying this happened. Doesn't know the date, doesn't know the time, doesn't know the house, doesn't know who drove her back and forth from the party, doesn't know how she got out of the house, doesn't know anything. And most of the inconsistencies we're finding out are complete lies. When her front door was put in when she said that she went and she mentioned Kavanaugh's name during her therapy. All of this is turning out to be fake, phony, and false. Now, what's very interesting is that Christine Blasey Ford published an academic study. She co-authored it. And this is about using hypnosis as a tool to retrieve memories in traumatized patients. The study discussed the therapeutic use of hypnosis to create artificial situations. Now, the paper by Ford and several other co-authors focused on whether various therapeutic techniques, including hypnosis, alleviate depression. It also discussed the therapeutic use of hypnosis to assist in the retrieval of important memories and to create artificial situations to assist in treatment. Now, this whole thing is a real study. And this is just really unbelievable when you start to think about this. I mean, was this used on her to make her seem like she was credible, to stick artificial situations into her mind? I do believe that she went through something, and I believe maybe they used this to add Kavanaugh to it. And we'll talk about Q because it seems like Q might be confirming all of this. So let's review what's going on right now. Phase 1, they decided to bring out this letter and try to delay the confirmation of Kavanaugh. It completely failed. So they tried to create chaos with the Me Too movement. Phase 2, they used sex assault claims to demand an investigation to further delay the confirmation. They thought they were going to have a fight with Trump, but Trump agreed. And now there's an investigation. Now Feinstein and the rest, they want to know the scope of the investigation. And we'll get into that a little bit later because that's very important. Phase 3, use investigation to frame validity narrative, further delay. Use Republican fear, leverage Jeff Flake, not Democrats, to continue the delay. Manipulate FBI, shift investigation goalposts. Phase 4, change the narrative. Talk about drinking, anger issues, lying. Create a connection that he has a drinking problem and an anger problem, so this must mean he did something to Dr. Ford. And this is where we are right now. This is what they're trying to push. And they're trying to push it very, very hard because they know the FBI is going to show that they have no real information about what really happened because nobody can remember it. It's like it never even happened. And remember, the FBI is not going to come up with a conclusion. They're not going to say, oh, yes, this did happen or didn't happen. They're just going to present the evidence, and the evidence is going to be lacking. That's the problem. This is why they're on phase 4. They want to delay the confirmation. Now, what's very interesting about all of this is that the deep state continually uses GoFundMe. And this might be some type of money laundering scheme. Remember Strzok? We had to support him for his FBI investigation. He raised around $462,000. We also see a GoFundMe page for Dr. Ford for her security. We needed to raise $150,000. Then there was another GoFundMe page for Dr. Ford who raised around $500,000. It looks like they might be using GoFundMe pages to pay off certain individuals. So when Dr. Ford's lawyer says, I'm doing this pro bono, well, maybe some of the payments are coming from GoFundMe and they're paying off many other people. And those people who are out there, they're also getting paid. We see the FBI is refusing to release 36 secret memos involving the Clintons, Russia, and Obama. And the FBI has refused to declassify 37 pages of materials related to the Uranium 1 deal, citing national security and the privacy issues. Now, the documents are thought to contain information regarding then Secretary of State Hillary Clinton's involvement, as well as the Obama administration knowledge of the controversial deal. Now, remember, the Department of Justice doesn't want to release anything. The FBI doesn't want to release anything, and what's going to happen eventually is that all of this is going to be declassified. All of it's going to be brought out into the open, and this is what they're very afraid of. Now, what's very interesting with North Korea is that every time the mainstream media puts out a story that North Korea is not going to denuclearize unless sanctions are removed, they're not going to denuclearize because they want the U.S. to denuclearize, they're not going to work with Trump. Every time a story is put out like this to make it seem like North Korea is not doing anything, Kim Jong-un comes out and backs up Trump. Again, Kim Jong-un came out and he confirmed his willingness to the denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula. He even said this to Moon Jae-in, who is the president of South Korea. So every time the mainstream media tries to say this isn't happening, Kim Jong-un is coming out and backing Trump up. And I believe this is part of the plan, that Kim Jong-un agreed with Trump to debunk the mainstream media every single time. We see in Libya, Commander Haftar wants elections in the country. And it looks like there are certain groups, certain governments, that UN non-elected government that was placed in Libya, they don't want elections at this time. I wonder why. Remember, they were not elected. They were placed in there by the US, the UN, and many other countries. They don't want to leave their position. This is the puppet regime. And the people want to take back control of Libya. Now, out in Syria, we can see that the fight against the paid mercenary forces, which is the Islamic State, al-Nusra, al-Qaeda, is coming to an end right now. And Mattis says something very, very interesting. The total number of U.S. diplomats in Syria has doubled since the anti-ISIS coalition began their operation nearly 5 years ago. Our diplomats are there on the ground, and they're there for a reason, because the battle with the Islamic State is nearing its end. And we're getting ready for a diplomatic discussion in Syria. We can tell already that they're getting prepared and ready to remove the troops from Syria. Yes, I know there are other stories out there saying that the troops are never going to leave Syria. Now, if you go back in time, this is what the deep state said when Obama was president, where the battle in Syria is going to last many, 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 many years, and the troops will never leave. That is the deep state story. This is why we've been tracking all this, so we can make heads and tails of all of this that's going on here. Just like with the North Korean incident, where the mainstream media was out there saying that we're going to be attacked by a nuclear weapon by North Korea, where we were saying, no, there's peace negotiations going on in the background. The same thing is happening in Syria right now. This is why there's more diplomats on the ground. They're wrapping this up, and we're going to see this happen very, very quickly. Let's move into some of Q's posts here. We're going to go to post 2303, and Q posted a picture of the Boeing 787 inside. This is post 2298, and below it, it says, how many planes crashes since post standard deviation? And basically, since Q posted the first picture, 2298, this was September 29th, we had about 14 accidents and 3 fatalities since Q posted this. And this is Southern California airfield has 2 plane crashes in 2 days, 2 fatal Laverne plane crashes unrelated, small plane crash in Utah. I mean, it just goes on and on and on. But one thing does stand out is that there were no military planes that crashed during this period. Now, I know on September 28th, an F-35 crashed, but besides that, we were really not seeing that many military planes crash. So what does this mean? This means that the deep state is losing control, and the Patriots have gained control because, remember, the deep state was crashing a lot of the planes. And we can see that now things are starting to reverse. I think that's the message that Q is trying to get out. Let's move on to post 2304. And this is a very long post, and I'm not going to read the entire thing. And what this was about, back in February, Q hosted an extensive discussion about Edward Snowden and John Perry Barlow and their work related to Secure Drop and the Freedom of Press Foundation. And this thread that Q posted provides the background information. Now, there's a lot of information about John Perry Barlow, about Snowden, about all of it. But the main point of this is that something was exposed by Q and then they dealt with the problem. So under this, Q says the following. Simple. We made it public. Operation closed and cleaned. Coincidence post-drop. Coincidence no name exact 30. This is in brackets in bold. Coincidence Senator Graham activated. In the end, you will be shocked to learn what you've essentially witnessed. Think New York City bomber. Fireworks hours prior. Where we go one, we go all. Q. Now, if we look at this, no name checked out exactly 1 month to the minute after Q's post. It seems there are certain individuals that were set free once no name was gone. McConnell, Grassley, and especially Graham. Graham was activated. And you can see that he is doing the work that he's supposed to be doing. He's supporting Kavanaugh, and he's doing whatever they tell him to do because he flipped. Now, the other thing, in the end, you'll be shocked to learn what you've essentially witnessed. Think New York City bomber, fireworks hours prior. Now, remember back in time when we had this individual who was in the tunnels of New York City, and he decided to blow himself up, and it looked like it malfunctioned. It was sparks. But hours prior to this, Q came on and said that they replaced it with fireworks, so nothing would happen. And Q said, expect fireworks. So once again, we should expect to see nothing from what is happening here, because they are taking down the deep state and making sure that nothing happens. And in the end, I think everyone's going to be shocked to learn what you've essentially witnessed, that what really happened when the truth comes out. And I'm talking about everything here. We're all going to be shocked about the inner workings of what happened, especially those people that have been asleep with the crimes, treason, corruption, the payoffs, and everything else. And I think this is what Q is trying to relay to us. Post 2305. And Anon put up, Ford should down for perjury. ... Under this, Q wrote, refused to hand over therapy notes to FBI. Think why. Justice K never named. And this is in brackets and all bold. Mr. X logged in book along with physical description during I's closed session equals / equals Justice K. FBI no subpoena power, no grand jury to demand. Justice K never named, asked during polygraph. Something did happen to Dr. Ford in her past. Use of that something to frame Justice K. Dr. Ford's family has strong ties to the swamp. FBI has expanded investigation into other suspicious acts with support of ABC agency as authority by POTUS. Brackets, Rod Rosenstein involved. Q. Yes, Rod Rosenstein is involved, spoke to Senator Flake. And this is why this all came about. And everything that we said about Dr. Ford, where she went through something, yes, they're using this, but they added Kavanaugh to the mix. This is why the story doesn't make any sense, because they're making it up as they went along. And the polygraph test, which we discussed many, many times before, never named Kavanaugh. And FBI, there are no They have no subpoena power. There's going to be no grand jury, and they can't demand it. But Q is telling us there is something else going on with the FBI. Now, Rex came out with a theory, and this is his Twitter feed. If you were to believe the fake news, you'd be thinking that the FBI investigation into Dr. Ford began just a few days ago, started by Trump. What if we're to tell you that it started on September 12th, weeks ago? It was Senator Feinstein herself who instigated it, but until the last 24 hours, has had no idea that the investigation has been all about her all along. Remember, September 12th, it was Feinstein who sent Dr. Ford letter to the FBI. This was an orchestrated hit. Within hours on September 13, we have the New Yorker, New York Times, CNN, and others hyping up Feinstein's referral to the FBI of a letter by a then accuser, Dr. Ford. The Intercept also appears to be involved. Somehow all these outlets were aware that the letter had been referred by Feinstein's office to the FBI. But here's the clever bit. Can you recall the FBI's response? We pass it on to the White House to add to the file. Nothing to see here. You know what I think? The FBI started an investigation there and then. But the FBI investigation was into Dr. Ford and her conspirators, politicians, and lawyers. It started as soon as Feinstein sent them that letter, September 12th, 13th. And Feinstein, as well as the others involved, were duped. This would explain Trump's enthusiasm for a full-scale probe into what's going on, with his encouragement of the FBI interviewing as many people as they want to finish by the close of this week. It would also explain Feinstein's panicked demand to know the full details of Trump's orders. I don't think she's going to get it, because they're investigating Ford, they're investigating Feinstein, they're investigating everyone that was involved and how this all came about. It also explains Trump's repeated reference to Feinstein leaking the Ford letter. They have it all. They already know. He knows everything that's gone down. And Feinstein knows this. She's panicking right now. Let's move on to post 2306. Q put up a Twitter link. This is the Fox News. Says to look at the time 9 minutes. And in quotes, Q says, "We will be voting this week, heading to Tennessee now." Let's take a listen to the video.
And so let me make it very clear. The time for endless delay and obstruction has come to a close. Judge Kavanaugh's nomination is out of committee. We're considering it here on the floor. And Mr. President, we'll be voting this week.
Let's move on to post 2307. This is a video on YouTube. Q Plus posted this, and this is Ronald Reagan, USA role in world as peacekeeper, peace through strength. Here's the very beginning of it. If you want to listen to the rest, you can go to the X22 report or click on the link below this video. Here's the video.
Make this an absolute fact. The goal is world peace. That must be our prime responsibility. We are the leader of the free world, whether we want to be or not. And therefore, we are the only ones that can preserve the peace. And to do that, we must have strength.
Now, as you can see, Reagan is talking about the military, peace around the world, and having the strength to keep peace. And many people believe that the military is used to start war. Reagan was saying the military is being used to maintain peace. And this is completely opposite of the deep state, where they were using the military to keep their system alive by creating wars and having regime change in many different areas. Post 2308, and Anon put up, what time is the rally in Tennessee tonight, Eastern Standard Time? Q answered, does POTUS normally tweet heading to X prior to a rally? Today, for the first time, we identified where we would be, reconcile. So we're going to move on to post 2309. And Anon put up, heading to Tennessee now, and Anon said the following, Q is saying that Trump normally tweets when he is going. Today he didn't. Today Q posted where he is going. Reconcile. So Q has announced the president's itinerary. A Q proof. Post 2310. And Anon put up the same thing that we just talked about, and then showed the different tweets of Trump. And it says, heading to West Virginia, heading to Ohio, heading to Iowa, heading to Missouri. We'll be heading to one of my favorite places, South Carolina. And below that, it says solid confirmation of POTUS on Q team, 5x5. Let's move on to post 2311. And Anon put up the American flag and said, thank you, Q. And Q says, God bless you, Patriot Q. Post 2312, and Anon put up, Q, me and mine stand behind you to the end. Say the word. We've been preparing a long time. We're ready. We're here to help you however we can. You know who this is. God bless you. God bless POTUS. Under this, Q put darkest days. Amen, brother. This evil must be destroyed. Q. Post 2313. And Anon put up, burned, disabled, amputee, veteran. Wife and I are ready. My injuries will be with it when we overthrow evil. Q put, no words, patriot. Allow us to carry this heavy burden. Trust your fellow man. We will win. God bless you and your family. Q. Now, we can see that things are moving along here because Jeff Sessions was subpoenaed to appear October 4th with unredacted FISA and other docs and 302s. And this is out of the House of Representatives on their judiciary.house.gov site. And it says, subpoena. The Honorable Jeff Sessions, Attorney General of the United States, you are hereby commanded to be and appear before the Committee on the Judiciary of the House of Representatives of the United States at the place, date, and time specified below. Place of production, 2138 Rayburn House Office Building, October 4th, 12 p.m. And it was signed by Chairman Bob Goodlatte. And we can see right now that this is the beginning stage of declassifying everything. We see the deep state sent a message to Trump, the Patriots, and that includes Mattis and the rest. Ricin was found in an envelope and it was being mailed to Mattis and Admiral John Richardson. Now, we can see that a message was sent. Maybe there was an assassination attempt. And it looks like message was received. And like Q always says, these people are sick. And we can see these people are sick. They're trying to assassinate. They're sending messages. And they're saying that we will get rid of you any way we possibly can. Now, of course, we know that this was going to stop. It was never going to reach the office because they have detectors detecting all of this. And this was in a mail building next to the Pentagon. But this was definitely a message to the Patriots. Stand down, don't go any further, or there will be events. And we can see right now, the deep state, they're getting ready to fight back. We know they're just not going to fold because they know what's coming. What's coming? Well, Jeff Sessions is already going, and he's subpoenaed to appear about the declassification. They know the declassification's coming. They know Rod Rosenstein, he's in trouble. They know Kavanaugh is going to be confirmed. Once he's confirmed, what happens? Declassification. Then what? Goodbye, Mr. Rod Rosenstein. Then what? The indictments. Then what? Arrests. It's all happening. Red October. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.